street, every village, every tree. Only one name was whispered. The news also reached the ears of Morni's daughter, and then a very old woodcutter who lived in an old hut outside the forest with cracked hands and a stooped back. He was counting his wood that day when a passing courtier repeated the same announcement. The wood fell from the hand of the woodcutter. He felt as if time had suddenly turned back. Those voices, those screams, that flapping of Morni and the voice of a man. Leave it. If someone sees the woman, bring it up. We have to leave it. The woodcutter's breathing quickened. He remembered that morning when the screams of a newborn baby girl echoed in the forest and a wounded peacock was carrying her in its beak deep into the forest. That day, he could not say anything to anyone because of fear. But today, time had brought him to the same point again. Friends, this was the same woodcutter who we told you at the beginning of the video that he was watching Morni and those boys and girls fight. The woodcutter reached directly outside the fort. To the guards there, told everything. That person, that scene, that voice, and that girl. When the king and prince came to know about him, he was immediately called inside. With trembling hands, the woodcutter took out an old broken silver bracelet. It was in the hand of the same girl. That day when Morni was taking him, Muskan looked at him hard and suddenly something sparkled in his eyes. The king gave the woodcutter a large reward and immediately gave orders. An investigation should be started in the area where the woodcutter saw the scene. A few days later, the truth came out. A young man belonging to a high family whose relationship was fixed with the daughter of a rich vizier. But he had an illicit relationship with a poor village girl. When the girl was born, the man explained to the girl to save her honor. If anyone finds out about this, I will be ruined. We have to leave it somewhere quietly in the forest. And that poor woman also handed over her daughter to the forest with her own hands while shedding tears. When all this was known, the king summoned them both. The girl who was now old, and the man who was still living his lie. As soon as he saw the smile, the woman burst into tears. My child, I wanted you more than my own life, but I was weak. I was afraid. Muskan just kept looking. Her real parents were in front of her, but today her identity was not that relationship. I realized that this is my world and I forgive those who left me out of fear, but I don't accept it. There was peace in the country. There were talks about the grounds of the palace, the rooms, and the princely smile that had now become the life of that princely state. But there was a corner where there was silence, where there was confusion. That corner was an old green tree behind the garden, where a tired Mandy Morni used to go and sit every day. Muskan still used to visit the same Morni first thing in the morning. She watered him with her hands, fed him rice. But now Morni did not fly much, nor was it as bright as before. There was a shadow of farewell in his eyes. One morning, when there was a light breeze blowing in the garden, there was dew on the leaves, and the smile ran away smiling. Morni was sitting on the ground, very quiet. Muskan was nervous. What happened, my mother? He lifted Morni in his lap. Shahzada Arsalan also came behind. Hakim Baba was also called. But Morni slowly held Muskan's finger and looked at him. Then Morni nuzzled her neck against Muskan's chest, and with a slow gasping breath fell silent forever. There was silence in the whole palace. The king's eyes were wet. Shahzada's fingers were trembling. Muskan just sat there like a stone. 3 days later, Morni was buried in the ground behind the palace. Flowers were laid all around. A marble bar was placed on top. On it was written, "Mother who did not give birth to me, but wanted more than mother." Months passed. Muskan was on her feet again. She knew Morni was still alive in her memories. The story is over, but the relationship is not. Because sometimes, the mother is the one with the wings. As was Morni. Will she be able to save herself and the baby? But this forest can take a new turn in her life. Morni gathered his full strength once again. His heart, which was full of only one affection before. Now he was drowning like a victim, who would fight for his life at any cost. Morni had decided to risk his life to save that girl. As the boy and girl approached, Morni opened its beak and let out a loud noise. This noise made the boy and the girl stunned. The boy hurriedly picked up the wood and moved towards Morni. But the fire in Morni's eyes cooled his steps. Morni swooped down and pushed the boy's wood with his wings and threw him aside. The girl shouted, "Where are you going?" "Kill him." But Morni's bright eyes, which were shining like moonlight, filled the boy's heart with a strange fear. Morni immediately took off with all her might and stood like a wall in front of the boy and girl with her wings. The boy and the girl were scared. But Morani went one step further. This time, pushing the girl with its beak, the girl screamed as she fell. "What are you doing?" Morni gave it a flick and flew into the air, wrapping the baby in her wings. But in Morni's eyes, there was a hint of affection. She flew away with the child. His wings were floating in the air, like a wild bird running with the winds. His flight was no longer that of a butterfly, but that of a hunter, swift and dangerous. Morni flew away, but there was one more question that was on everyone's lips. How did both the boy and the girl know that the child was with Morni? Actually, when the boy and the girl were running away, leaving the girl in the forest, the girl suddenly starts looking back. Her eyes fall on the child and Morni, and she sees that Morni is loving the child. Then suddenly her eyes are fixed on Morni and that child. His eyes were no longer indifferent and disinterested, but now there was a look of deep confusion and surprise. The girl said to the boy slowly, "Look, the same child is with Morni." The boy looks back, but there was the same fear in his eyes that was now on the girl's face. Both their hearts started beating faster, and they realized that there was no way out. Because if this wrongdoing of theirs was revealed, the world of their relationship could change completely. He turned back to finish off the girl completely this time. And along with this, if this Morni says anything, then kill this Morni also. But then suddenly, a voice full of deep terror was heard. The roar of a lion sent a faint shiver through the body of the boy and girl. This voice was so loud that both of them were heartbroken. Was it really a lion? The girl's voice was nervous, and the boy could not say anything. He felt that this lion might come towards him, and he again began to regret his actions. The boy and the girl now hesitated to move towards Morni and the girl. He had a strange fear inside him and understood that the presence of animals like lions in the jungle could be very dangerous for him. Still, the boy said, "He must go back now. We have no business here. We will see this Morni and the girl again." The girl bowed her head and said in a low voice, "He must think more about chasing this girl. But first, we have to get out of this forest. Nothing is impossible here." They both go back and again come to Bachi and Morni in the forest to finish them off. When Morni picked up the little girl in his beak and took her to a deep part of the forest, the air of the forest, which had once seemed so light and refreshing to him, now as if someone had turned into a deep confusion. But Morni had decided one thing in his heart. He will save that girl even more than his own life. Days passed, and day by day that girl was growing up. Morni used to bring bee honey from the forest for his food and drink. Sometimes she would break the fruits and chew them in her mouth first and put them in the baby's mouth. Sometimes she would bring milk from a monkey and feed the baby. The child's smile was settling in the deepest corner of Morni's heart with every step. Morni's heart was full of affection and protection for that girl. Morni's heart was pounding with mixed feelings of joy and fear as she approached the child. In that deep part of the forest where humans have never been able to reach, the relationship between Morni and the child was gradually changing into a mother-daughter relationship. Morni wraps that girl in her wings and protects her from every danger tried to save. She would love him to sleep next to her. Fear was never seen on the child's face. Rather, there was just a unique calmness and silence in his eyes. Morni and Bachi's love was such that they both could not live without each other. The baby girl was now slowly growing up. There was no fear and confusion in his eyes. Now he had the passion and conviction to understand the dense forest like Morni. She was now gradually recognizing the paths of the forest. Morni had taught her how to avoid all the dangers of the forest, and one day, there was a slight knock of winter, and the rays of sunlight were falling silently on the trees. There was a silence in the air, the one that is full of unspeakable confusion. Bahadur Baba Hakim Sahab had to go out of the forest for a very important work. Before leaving, he explained Muskan and Morni very lovingly. "A daughter is a matter of few days. Don't feel lonely in my absence. You are not alone anymore. You yourself have become worthy to protect others." Muskan bowed her head and said, "Ji Baba," and Morni seemed to understand everything without alphas. Now in that hut, only smile, and that simple Morni remained. The relationship between the two was no less than that of a mother and father. As the days passed and the nights came, Morni would go to sleep wrapped in Smile, and Smile would often hide her face in her wings and sleep. They had their own perfect place in the forest. Here, a caravan of hunters entered from the other side of the same forest. Shahzada Arsalan, the only son of the emperor, along with some of his loyal soldiers, had gone down into the shade of the forest to look for prey. Arsalan, who until today had only heard of life outside the palace in stories. He was enjoying the smell of the forest, the fear, and the silence. Something strange. But everything is not as we think. A wild boar suddenly came out of the bushes and the prince's horse spooked him and threw him to the ground. He got a deep cut in his arm and blood started dripping from his knee. The soldiers panicked. "Prince, your wounds are deep. An elderly Hakim lives nearby. Bahadur Baba is close to our king. His hut is not far away. Let's go there." Prince Arsalan closed his eyes. Pain flashed across his face. But the soldiers took him to that old hut by supporting him in their arms. In the hut, Bahadur Baba was no longer there, nor was his old voice. Morni was sitting outside the hut. Every time she woke up first at the sound of a stranger. But this time, he felt something. As the soldier reached the hut, a smile broke out. There was dirt on his garment, a few medicinal leaves in the hands, and the same comfort in the eyes that only the forest knew. "Hakim, sir, is not?" "No, they have gone out," Muskan said, and stopped for a moment seeing Shahzad. "The wound is deep. If it is delayed, the situation may worsen. Bring it in." Muskan looked at Morni. As before every decision she used to confirm it. Morni indicated with his eyes and treated it. The prince was brought in. The hut has the same smell of earth, the old brick walls, and a comfort that is not even found in royal palaces. Muskan immediately took out his work stuff. Ointment made from herbs, warm water, neem bark, and that soft tone that silences any pain. "The pain is great. Who are you?" Shahzada slowly said, "Muskan, Bahadur Baba's daughter." She started cleaning the wound. Then Shahzada's eyes fixed on Muskan's face. She did not look like an ordinary girl. There was a different sparkle in his eyes, a strange solace, a hushed tone that silences every noise. There was a strange silence inside the hut. Neither Morni's chirping, nor Muskan's light laugh, nor Shehzade's words, just pain ointment and a special relationship that had just started without taking any name. Shehzade Arsalan's health was now getting better. There was a strange confusion in his heart. The freshness of the forest aside, it fell asleep. This girl whose color was like milk and eyes like the eyes of a deer? On the other hand, he himself is a prince, a resident of palaces, a boy burdened by politics and throne, who was now for the first time felt by someone instead of pain. In the following days, Shahzada's condition improved. Muskan takes care of his food and drink. There is a lot in your eyes, changing the ointment in the morning and afternoon, and sometimes just sitting quietly with Morni. People do not understand things by looking in the eyes, Shahzad. Some things are felt by feeling. It was the first time Arsalan had been answered in such a tone, unhesitatingly, but unaccountably deep. That night when Shahzada sat outside for the first time, he saw Muskan and Morni sitting outside the hut in the moonlight. Muskan was moving her fingers in Morni's wings and was smiling like the moon. "Morni is still as soft on you as he was in childhood. Do you talk to it? Every day, every moment, this is my mother too." There was a time in the forest when the trees talked softly, and the wind moving between the leaves told a story. Some distance away was an old banyan tree whose roots held the ground in its arms. A little further from there, a thin, unpaved road passed through the heart of the forest, and on the same unpaved road, a pair of peacocks and peacocks were walking as usual. Peacock has always been a bit shy. The neck is high, the gait is elegant, and the wings are like a trap. But Morni's mood was mixed, deeply silent. There was often an unfulfilled hope in his eyes. That day, when he reached a bend in the trail, a very faint but clearly audible voice made him stop. The sound of a newborn baby crying. Morni's movement stopped. His neck was bent and his ears were listening to the sound. Peacock immediately said, "There is no hunter. Let's go back." But Morni did not agree. This voice does not belong to the hunter, but to the beloved Nadan. He slowly started going towards the bushes. As soon as he got near, he saw a scene in front of his eyes, which was heart-wrenching. A little girl wrapped in bare mud was lying on the ground. His body was trembling. The voice was soft, but there was a yearning in it that cut straight to the heart. The peacock began to retreat, but Morni's eyes stopped, and then two shadows passed in front of his eyes. A boy and a girl, clothes haphazardly wrapped in confused faces. For a moment, Morni understood only one thing. This child belongs to them, and these people have left her like this, and run away. To erase the evidence of your hidden relationship, Morni moved forward slowly and touched the girl with his beak. Then he bent his neck and listened to his light breathing. She was alive but very fragile. Peacock spoke from behind. "Why are you putting yourself through this trouble? It is not right to jump into human affairs." But there were tears in Morni's eyes, because Morni remembered that she herself had never been able to become a mother. She bent down and took the baby under her wings very protectively. At that time, the peacock stood and watched but could not say anything. It was evening. A light blue mist was spreading over the forest, and the sound of an owl could be heard from a distance. Morni silently started returning to her old shelter built in a corner for that child. There was no more emptiness in his heart. There was only one relationship between mother and child. But he did not know the truth of that girl. The relationship that was making him mother is going to bring a big storm. Night had now completely covered the forest. A slight chill in the air, the rustling of leaves, and sometimes the sound of an animal in the distance all combined to create an atmosphere as if some unknown fear was floating in the jungle. But under Morni's wings, a little soul was sleeping peacefully. He looked at the peacock, who was standing at a distance, still in a state of surprise and not understanding. "Look, this baby is mine now," Morni said slowly, but with great conviction. Her voice had the tone of a mother. The peacock just looked at him for a while. Then he said, "But raising human children is not easy. Their lives are not like ours. They need things. Milk, cloth, softness, and our world is made of only leaves and insects." Morni listened to him completely, but there was only one scene in his eyes at that time. The lovely child who had now awakened the mother's identity within her. Morni took him under the old mulberry tree where the two often spent the night. There was a dense thicket that provided some protection from the cold winds. The peacock gathered the leaves with its beak. A layer of dry straw was laid, and Morni laid the child on it very gently. The child was still very weak. His body was cold and his breathing shallow. Morni spread his wings around him and formed a circle. The first moment of mother's protection. But the question was, what now? That sweet girl needed to eat. Human babies cannot survive without milk. And it was a forest. And she was also a morni. But not far away in the eastern part of that forest lived a herd. A group of monkeys that mostly spend day and night on tall trees and sleep together at night. In that herd was an old female monkey whose offspring had recently died. The milk was still in her body but not the baby. That old woman was alone at night. As the first light of the morning spread, she wandered to the mulberry tree where peacocks and herons lived. Hearing the baby's cry, the woman stopped there. There was strangeness in his eyes, but there was also a strange feeling. Morni clutched the baby to her chest and looked. The female monkey was slowly approaching. She bent down and looked at the child. For a moment, it was like two mothers understood each other. One who lost her children, and the other who never became a mother. Morni gently moved the child forward. The female monkey took the child in her arms with a fluttering affection, and it happened what was needed. It was hoped that she would not come back, or some other person would come out in the forest, and the story of this girl would be exposed. Now Morni was not only to be a mother, he also had to be a watchman. A mother who not only loves, but also fights. But at that time, Morni did not know that when he picked up the child. Someone was watching him. He was not an animal. He was human. An old woodcutter who used to cut trees in the corner of the forest. He had seen the whole thing from a distance. And now, a strange story had formed in his mind. A moron who has kidnapped a human baby. Maybe because of some sorcery or magic. Now that woodcutter had a story to tell that Morni had picked up a baby girl. Friends, keep this woodcutter in your mind. It will prove to be a very important character in the story. The next morning there was something strange about the forest. There was a kind of uneasiness in the air, as if some unseen fear was rustling through the leaves of the trees. The peacock was sitting on the height of a tree and was watching everything with his eyes. On the ground near him, Morni hid the child in the lips of her soft wings. Just like a mother is protecting her children from danger by spreading her wings. Then suddenly at noon, the monkeys who were feeding the baby went quietly without saying anything to anyone. Perhaps he realized that this world is no longer his, and the responsibility of protecting that girl is now on someone else's shoulders. Now Morni was left alone, but full of courage. Suddenly, one evening, Morni heard the sound of something in the distance. That voice was somewhat familiar. It was the sound of human footsteps, the tone in which the forest falls silent. The child's breathing became fast. Perhaps he was touched by some unseen memory. Morni spread his wings with a jerk. He knew that danger was near. a sound of wood came from a corner of the forest. Then the face of a man with half-grown hair, an axe on his shoulder, and a strange tiredness in his eyes. He was a woodcutter. Who was the woodcutter? His name will come later in the story, but his face was tired as if life had shown him a lot. Morni saw the man hiding under the tree, but the man did not come towards the girl. He was just busy cutting the branches of the trees and tying his burden. He did not even hear the child's voice. But there was someone else. Two people who ran away from the forest that day. The boy and the girl who left the forest for their lives to erase their sins. He came to the forest again in search of the girl and Morni. But the question was, how did they know that Morni had the baby and was alive? This will also be revealed later. Well, they both didn't find Morni and the girl in the forest that day. Morni now wrapped the baby in her wings and slowly started sliding towards the bushes. She left the place where she had been staying for several days. Now every moment was his effort. Protect the girl from human eyes and take her to a safe corner. But the forest was no longer the same. A hunter's net was hanging from somewhere. There are traces of human boots on the ground. Morni understood. Now you have to fly not only with your wings, but also with your mind. One day, Morni was with the girl in the forest. Then suddenly, there was a voice. She must be here somewhere. Morni's soul trembled. The boy and the girl were again in the forest. There was a look of uneasiness on his face. The girl was repeatedly saying that if anyone sees, then everything will be over. We need that girl. What happened till now was like a coincidence, but now the silence of the forest was broken. There was a fire in Morni's eyes. There was a storm that would not let the girl's protection be interrupted at any cost. Now it was time for him to fight the man himself. No one will come to help. No one will lend a hand. Just him and the girl, and the victory in that battle will be his in any case. Morni, being afraid, held the girl tighter in her wings. He gathered all his strength and hid it in a clump of tall grass so that no one could see it. But the voices of that boy and girl were still echoing in his ears. They were both coming closer, making more noise so that no one would suspect. It was dangerous, and Morni was fully aware of it. Morni slowly moved her wings and started moving forward, carefully holding the baby girl. There was stillness like snow under his feet. The leaves that tried to drown him. Now only the sound of his breathing was dissolving. That's when both the boy and the girl reached near Morni, keeping their feet on the ground. His face was like a hunter, a sharp, sly gaze that was ready to catch any prey. Morni realized that hiding was no longer possible. He had to show his attacking skills at all costs, so that the girl's life was not in danger. Morni suddenly spread his wings fully, like a bird of prey ready to attack at any moment in front of the enemy. There was a strange silence in his eyes, but in his heart there was that wrapped him in her wings and brought him under the shade of a tree to escape the storm. There was a strange trouble in her eyes because she knew that if any hunter or animal reached them, the safety of the girl could be threatened. But at this moment, Morni's heart was trying to save that girl with all her strength. The child was now speaking. Morni's heart used to bloom when she heard his small voice. One day, Morni showed the girl a new place where the water of the river flowed and the quacking ducks played happily in the shade of the trees. Morni explained to the girl that this place is safe for her. But even after coming here, he will always have to be careful. The girl now began to know that even in the forest there is a kind of struggle that gives her the responsibility of protection at all times. Morni and Bachi's relationship had now become a strange relationship. Both could not live without each other. Their love and struggle had become their strength in every corner of the forest. The child was now growing up. There was a strange understanding and curiosity in his eyes. Morni had taught him everything that was necessary to live in the forest. Every day started with Morni's little footsteps and ended in the moonlight as the baby slept next to Morni. The relationship between Morni and the child was not just that of a mother-daughter, but a connection of two hearts, that the love of each other was clearly visible in the eyes of both. One day when the sun was setting in the forest, and there was something special in the air of the forest, an elderly man slowly made his way through the trees. That Hakim Sahib, who was known by the people of the jungle as Bahadur Baba. He was wearing an old bag on his shoulder. Various herbs and medicines were kept in the bag. His eyes knew the parts of the forest where special herbs were found, and he was looking for them. But when Hakim Sahab's eyes wandered into a deep part of the forest and saw those two, Morni and the girl, he was shocked for a while. Seeing Morni, he was shocked and confused. What were they looking at? In such a deep part of the forest, where did this girl come from? Has this morni picked up a human child? Hakim Sahib fell into thinking. He saw the relationship between the child and morni with his own eyes. Then a slight smile appeared on his face. Hakim Sahib slowly approached and stood near morni. There was a kind of understanding and sweetness in his voice. He said to morni, "Is this child yours, or did you adopt her from somewhere?" Hakim Sahib asked this question with great love, as if he wanted to know whether morni had taken the child to save her from a dangerous situation or something else. Without saying a word, morni just pulled the child closer with his beak. The child was now completely attached to morni, and in his eyes, that happiness, and leave it here. Morni's heart was filled with anger and fear. She wanted to keep this child with her at all costs. She could not understand why anyone would want to separate her from the baby girl. Morni spread its wings with its beak and gently moved its beak away from Hakim Sahib's hands. Morni's gesture was clear. She will not give the child in anyone's hands. Hakim Sahib, who was a bit disturbed and surprised earlier, now slowly understood that Morni's love and protection for the child was very deep. Hakim Sahib said in a quiet voice, "Morni, I understand how much you love the girl, but she cannot be kept safe by staying with you. There can always be some kind of danger in the forest." Then he said to morni, "I will take you both to my hut, where there will be no danger for you. The baby girl will not suffer there. Stay where both of you are comfortable." Morni caught the baby girl with its beak and gently pushed it forward. "Like this? You understand everything." The girl held tightly to Morni's wings, and her face lit up with happiness. Hakim Sahib took morni and the girl with him and reached his hut deep in the forest. This hut was like an old but very lovely house. Its walls were made of mud and bamboo, and the roof was of dry grass and straw. Near the hut were gardens full of small flowers and herbs which were used for Hakim Sahib's famous herbs. The atmosphere of the hut was very relaxing. There was a sense of comfort and relief, as if everything was in its place. From the outside, this hut looks ordinary. But upon entering, the atmosphere was very strange. On the walls were old medicine packets and pots of herbs collected by Hakim Sahib. Hakim Sahib admitted morni and the girl inside the hut. Hakim Sahib named the baby girl Muskan. Muskan's eyes were filled with both curiosity and surprise as she saw a human being for the first time. The cottage and this man were all new to him, but being with morni, he was not feeling any kind of problem. She knew that morni was with her and was not going to leave her under any circumstances. Hakim Sahib picked up Muskan in his lap and named him with great love. "Your name will now be Muskan because you always smile and your smile gives me relief." Muskan's eyes sparkled and she became very happy with the new name, as if she was now aware of his presence. Hakim Sahib decided to raise Muskan as both his daughter and disciple. He was seeing her not only as a child, but also as his disciple. He wanted Muskan to have good mental and physical development so that he can face the difficulties of life and take the right decisions in his life. Hakim Sahib started teaching Muskan about his herbs and medicines. He used to tell her how each plant and herb has a different effect and how they can be used in human life. Muskan slowly started to understand Hakim Sahib's words. She used to see and understand Hakim Sahib's life as if she herself would be able to do this work one day. In Hakim Sahib's hut, which used to be a very simple and lonely place, Muskan's laughter and voice made it feel like home. The smile gradually grew, and along with it, his understanding grew. She began to master Hakim Sahib's medicines and herbs. There was a different kind of relief in his eyes now. Muskan was no longer a little girl. She was 20 years old. His life had changed a lot. She was now very sensible, attentive, and responsible. His eyes had that sparkle that could have belonged to a great sage or doctor. Morni's love and Hakim Sahib's training taught him a lot in life. Hakim Sahib no longer taught him only medicines and herbs. Rather, he also used to explain to him what is the struggle in life. Musaka now began to realize that the difference between a forest and a human is only in appearance. The real difference is in hearts and relationships. Muskan had deep concern and love for Morni in his heart. Morni had now become a friend and a mother to him. Muskan had understood that Morni had not given birth to him, but he gave her everything that a mother gives to her child. His life would have been incomplete without Morni. Muskan's heart was now completely divided between Hakim Sahib and Morni. His way of living in the forest and his thinking about humanity had now completely changed. She knew that many difficulties were going to come in her life, but she was ready to face any challenge now. Now Muskan not only had Hakim Sahib's herbal knowledge, but also a deep understanding of the relationship between forest and humanity. She began to think that if a forest-dwelling morni could raise a human being as her daughter, then she too could make a name for herself in this world one day. Muskan no longer took a single step in the forest without Morni. She knew that Morni never left her alone, and now it was her turn to never leave Morni alone. Morni was more than a mother to her, and Muskan's heart always wanted that Morni should not be harmed in any way. Hakim Sahib watched the development of Muskan and saw his changing appearance with his own eyes. She had now become a wise ruler. She was not only knowledgeable about medicines and herbs, but also understood the relationship between forest and humanity. Hakim Sahib's heart was also swelled by this development of smile. He now considered Muskan more than his daughter. He always told her, "You have taught me what I never knew in my life." Muskan had always followed his advice, but now, she too started following her own path. Muskan was now known as a knowledgeable Hakim in the jungle. She not only treated the animals of the forest, but her voice started spreading among the humans as well. Everyone knew that smile can cure even difficult diseases. Muskan never promoted his identity much, but his intelligence and kindness earned him a special place in everyone's hearts. As Muskan grew older, Morni's love and presence became more important. She was no longer fragile as before, but had become a strong and intelligent girl. But his heart was always with Morni. Without Morni, his heart did not feel. She knew that Morni raised her like a mother. Morni and Muskan's relationship became stronger with time. Muskan now understood that if she wants to make her place in the forest, she will have to face any difficulty like Morni. Dost also Shahzada did not sleep till late that night. He was thinking a lot. Who is this girl? What kind of woman is this who grew up with a Morni and became so intelligent? What it is possible for someone to be so simple and yet have such an impact on the heart? After 3 days, Shahzada recovered completely. The soldier said, "Shahzade should go now, waiting for you in the palace." But Arsalan's eyes were not moving away from that hut. His heart began to be tied to a strange relationship. A relationship that was not even formed yet, but the fear of breaking was felt. "Muskan ji Shahzade, can I come again sometime?" "No, my father is not here yet. It is not right for you to come alone." And at that moment, time stopped. Shahzada Arsalan looked into Muskan's eyes and then looked at Morni, as if she also knows any truth. He went with the soldiers, but his heart remained there. When Prince Arsalan reached back to the palace near that wild hut, that sweet smile and that quiet Morni, the gates of the palace started looking at his face like a wall looking for hope. King Salamat did not hide his anger and uneasiness when he saw Shahzad. "Arsalan, what is the situation? You were missing for several days, went hunting or playing with life?" Shahzada was silent for a while. Then he spoke in a very simple tone. "Abajan, I was wounded. A wild boar attacked me in the forest. The soldiers who were with me picked me up and took me to a nearby hut. There I was taken care of by Hakim Baba's daughter. She put ointment on me. She treated me." The emperor did not say anything for a moment. "What did you say? Hakim Baba's daughter?" "Gee, her name is Muskan. She is very straightforward but understanding. So much in her tone. It was as if someone was sitting by the river." He immediately called his old vizier. He replied quietly, "He has been lonely for many years. There is no sign of his wife." Carefully looked into the eyes of the prince, as if someone seeking to discover the hidden truth. Then who was the girl living in that hut? Arsalana was confused. A look of questions appeared on his face. But Abajan, she was saying that Hakim Baba often stays with her. He was the one who palpated and raised it. Doubt was beginning to fill the king's voice. Is it possible that Hakim Baba is hiding something? And if not, then who is this girl who treats a prince with her experience in her hut in her name? There was no more silence inside the palace. Instead, rumors, speculations, and some sinister intentions started to flourish. That girl had made a strange place in Shahzada Arsalan's heart. And now that he was being questioned, Shahzada became restless. "Abba, I must go again. I want to know for myself who that smile is. If he is cheating, I will punish him first. But if it is true, I will bring it to this palace and show its truth to the whole world." The king looked at him with sharp eyes. "You can go, but remember, a prince trusts in his faith. But if you get cheated instead of trust, not only the heart also shakes." The next day, Shahzada is going to come out again. This time, not only to see Muskan, but to lift the curtain from a secret, and there in the forest, Muskan and Morni never thought that Mahal would remember them like this. Coming to the hut the next day, Shahzada Arsalan's heart was filled with a strange uneasiness. The way was there, covered with trees and decorated with greenery. But now there was only one destination in his eyes. As soon as Muskan reached the hut, Morni's sharp eyes caught Shahzadeh. He immediately called Muskan in a soft voice. A smile came out. That plain, clean, and comforting face was again in front. Shahzada looked at him for a few moments. Then, taking a deep breath, he said, "You are a smile, aren't you?" G. Muskan shook his head. But now, there was surprise and confusion in his eyes. "Do you know that Hakim Sahab has no children? It was told in the palace that he has no son or daughter. Who are you then?" Muskan's eyes began to water. There was a silence in the voice. "I don't remember anything. I always felt that he was my father. He gave me love, taught me, wrote me, taught me medicine, protected me. Stay by my side in every fever. Even if he is not my real father, he is the biggest relationship in my life." Shahzada was silent for a while. His eyes were looking for the truth in Muskan's eyes, and it was clear to him that this girl cannot lie. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind the hut. "Muskan." My baby Muskan's face blossomed. He saw Hakim Bahadur Baba come forward through the bushes. Tired, but safe. Baba Muskan ran and hugged him. "Where did you go? I was very scared." Hakim Sahib placed his hand on Muskan's head, like a father meeting his daughter after years. "Just went to an urgent patient son. Tried to return early." Shahzada went ahead and asked for a dab. Hakim Sahib smiled and replied. But the seriousness of Shahzada's face pierced him. "Hakim Sahib, this girl you call daughter." "Smile. Is this your real daughter?" Hakim Sahib took a long breath. Time stopped for a few moments. "No, Prince. This is not my blood child. But more than that, I have children. I found this girl on the edge of the forest, when it was in trouble. Since then, I considered her as my daughter. To protect it, he taught the science of herbs, taught him skills. It has nothing to do with the name but with the struggle of life." The smile was silent until now, but tears were flowing from his eyes. Shahzada looked at her, and for the first time understood that sometimes relationships are built not by blood, but by time and loyalty. After a few moments, Shahzada pointed to his soldiers. "Hakim Sahib, Muskan, you both have to go to the palace with me. Now it is necessary to clarify that how did the girl living in a hut reach this point from the cipher? Both of you are not to blame, but after today I will not let all this remain a secret." Muskan looked at Baba once. Hakim Sahib shook his head and said, "Come on, son. Now the reality must be brought forward. And now the love of the cottage and the training of the jungle are about to knock inside the palace." Shahzada, Muskan, and Hakim Sahab had all gone on the royal road together, but with different questions. The Fiza of the palace was something different today. As usual, there was no royal announcement. Yet every official, every vizier, every courtier was waiting for only one thing. The king and prince will announce something in the court today. King Salamat was sitting on his throne, but the face was not hard, but wet from inside. When Hakim Bahadur Sahib entered the court, the emperor stood up from his seat, like meeting an old trusted friend after years. Hakim Baba Badshah's voice had a softness, a tajib, a depth. "You didn't just fix Shahzad, saved his life. But at the same time, you also gave our principality a capable ruler." Then the emperor's eyes fell on Muskan, who was standing in the palace for the first time today. Raw clothes, simplicity, but such a look in the eyes, such an atrium that even the ladies of the court were surprised to see. Badshah asked Hakim Sahib, "Baba, is this girl Muskan really not your daughter?" Hakim Sahib gave the same answer, which was not of blood, but of spirit. "No, Badshah Salamat, this is not my daughter. But she is a great responsibility and a great honor in my life. I found it in my childhood. It was with Morni, and since then I have never left it alone." As soon as he said this, a soft chirp sounded from behind. Morni was now old, but even today, there was the same light of affection in his eyes. Everyone in the court was now looking at the bird that took part in raising a human child. Tears came to the king's eyes. Then he looked at Shahzaid and said, "Arsalan, if you are alive today, it is because of this girl. Do you want to give a relationship to its favor?" The prince smiled, a very genuine, silent, but deep smile. "Abajan, I saw its softness in my pain, its skill in its helplessness, and its realization in its silence. If permitted, I would like to make him my companion." A faint noise echoed in the court. Some surprise, some irritation, some happiness, and some hesitation. The king first asked Hakim Sahib and the girl. He agreed because Hakim Sahib already knew the king and Arsalan was also grown up in front of him. The king raised his hand. Muskan is the daughter-in-law of our house from today, raised as a monk and trained as a Hakim. The marriage was not done with pomp, but with simplicity, comfort, and respect. Muskan never thought that in the forest where her silence echoed, she would become a royal relation today. Only a few days had passed since the wedding. In every corner of the palace, Muskan's direct words, his simplicity, and his love echoed even today. But Shahzada Arsalan's eyes were now searching for something else. Truth which till now was buried in some dense forest. One evening, the emperor called Hakim Bahadur Sahab over. His face was deep in thought. Hakim Baba, this girl won our hearts. But now my heart asks, what is its identity? Who is its real parent? Why was a baby girl thrown into the forest? A shadow waved in Hakim Sahib's eyes. The moment he saw a cute 4-year-old girl buried in the beak of an injured moose, the emperor immediately issued a royal proclamation. Anyone who knows anything about Shehzadi Muskan, be it small or big, will be rewarded if he tells the truth. As soon as this announcement echoed in the whole country, in every